If we end up getting as much snow as they're saying is possible tonight, 3 inches, I would definitely check D2L or email Wednesday morning. If we get 3 inches, probably a good likelihood MTSU will close. They've been doing that the last, 5 to 10 years with that much snow. More than likely they will. But if all the surrounding counties are closed and MTSU is still open, probably pretty good chance I'll close it, because if anybody in here has children, those children will be home and you may not have sitters available, and it's just too difficult. Let's plan on, and this will be kind of tentative, a little bit will depend on what happens on Wednesday. A quiz over Fellowship of the Ring on Wednesday, one over Two Towers on, I think that's Monday, and then one over Return of the King about a week after that. Just tentatively. These will be short quizzes, 10 questions probably, 10 points each, very basic character kind of stuff, Who is Bilbo's heir and cousin / nephew kind of a thing. Where do they go, blah, 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 blah. Okay? All right, having said all that, we need to pick up with where we left off, which was at the bridge of Khazad-dûm. Okay? We zipped along and skipped a whole bunch, and we find out that this dark power that resides in Moria is a Balrog. And Gandalf goes out to the center of this bridge that spans this big chasm, this abyss, and stands there and tells the Balrog, middle page 330, "You cannot pass. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Aenor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you. Flame of Adun, go back to the shadow. You cannot pass." Okay? Notice, he says you cannot pass 3 times. It's kind of like he wants to emphasize it. Okay? But Gandalf says he's the servant of the secret fire. Readers of Tolkien who wanted to know what the secret fire was had to wait until after he died. And his son published the Silmarillion in 1977 to find out what that is. When Eru Ilúvatar does the whole creation stuff through the Ainur, we're told he sent the secret fire to be at the center of all that was created. So it's kind of like it's the ultimate creative / sustaining power of God. Gandalf says, I am a servant of that. Okay? Balrog, notice, made no answer. The fire seems to die down a little bit. It whips out its wings and such. Gandalf is standing there, leaning on his staff, pulls out his sword. The Balrog pulls out a sword. There's a ringing clash. Gandalf tells him again, you cannot pass. The Balrog jumps up onto the bridge, and now this thing's huge. And Gandalf's relatively small compared to it. Aragorn, top of 331. He cannot stand alone. And Aragorn cries, Elendil, I am with you, Gandalf. Boromir says, well, I am, me too, Gondor, And at that moment, Gandalf lifts his staff, cries aloud, he smote the bridge before him. Notice, we're not told what he cries. He takes his staff, and he either whacks it like a bat down on the bridge, or he's holding it 2 hands, and he does this with it, okay? And he says something. We don't know what he says. But the staff breaks. Blinding sheet of white flame springs up. The bridge cracks, and it breaks at the Balrog's feet. And the Balrog falls into this thing. Okay, big question. Bottom of 330. It draws itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall. So it's got wings. How can it fall? If you've got wings, why doesn't it fly? Is it because the fissure isn't wide enough? In which case, turn along the length of the fissure and then... This might be, I don't know that it is, this might be one of the things that Tolkien says in the foreword to the second edition is a flaw that nobody else would really notice. I don't know that it is, but it might be. Anyways, the Balrog just
Didn't catch on to
They didn't have the time.
doesn't think about it. Could be. Drop a cat. Go find a cat. Throw it in the air. What's that cat going to do? It's going to land on its feet.
Probably catch you afterwards.
Catch a bird. What's the bird going to do if you throw it in the air? It immediately stops the action. I think that's one of those hyposomatic things where you just naturally do it. Like breathing. Like when you get thrown into a river or thrown into a pond, what do you do when you hit that water?
Go straight up.
Hold your breath.
You hold, you stop going.
Whatever it is that he said using the staff, because he's a wizard. So
Could be that the word he said that and used the staff broke the bridge. Maybe it had some kind of immobilize, go all Harry Potter, immobilizing spell or something, impedimenta term or something. Don't know. Anyways, the Balrog falls. And what does it do? It slings its whip, it grabs Gandalf by the feet. Gandalf falls, in his last words to Aragorn, Boromir, et al., "Fly, you fools." Now, there's an idiot on the internet. Actually, there's a lot of idiots on the internet. But there's an idiot on the internet who proposed this big, long, convoluted theory that Gandalf is actually telling Aragorn and the others how to get from where they are ultimately to Mordor. And it doesn't involve walking and it doesn't involve boats. They need to somehow get out of Moria, signal Gwaihir the Windlord. And Gwaihir the Windlord will fly them into Mordor. So Frodo can just kind of just like fly over the mountain and go, "Bombardier." And it's utterly asinine. I mean, it's just completely without merit because Tolkien wants Frodo to have to go through a bunch of experiences because of what those experiences will do to him. Yes?
Also, if the eagles kind of flew in, they would be super noticeable and really easy to shoot down.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another problem because, part of the whole reason for how Frodo gets into Mordor is because he is so small and insignificant. It's not like they're, as some will, as part of a diversionary tactic, they don't go up to the front door, knock on it. Okay? Some do. We'll talk about that when we get there. So, Gandalf dies. Okay? Aragorn says, "I will lead you." They go out. They get away from the orcs, etc. They find out, Frodo is wearing a coat of mithril because during the battle scene in the guard room, Frodo got stuck with a spear, but he wasn't injured. I mean, he has a bruise, but he wasn't injured. Why? Back in Rivendell, Bilbo gave him something that turned out to be pretty useful, a coat of mithril and such. So they keep going along their way, and top of 338 or so, Aragorn says, "We're going to go to Lothlorien." Okay? Gimli's like, not so sure about that. Boromir says, don't know that we should go there. In middle of 338, Aragorn asks, "Okay, so what other way would you go?" "A plain road, though it led through a hedge of swords. By strange paths has this company been led, and so far to evil fortune." What's Boromir really saying? Okay, what else? If you'd listened to me, this wouldn't have been a problem. In other words, if we'd marched south, taking the ring, using the ring, against my will, we passed under the shades of Moria. Remember, he was the only one who, it came down to essentially 8 against 1. He's like, okay. And now we must enter the Golden Wood, but of that perilous land we have heard in Gondor. It is said that few come out who once go in, and of that few none have escaped unscathed. What does it mean to scathe something? To be scathed.
Harmed.
Injured, harmed. Okay? Aragorn, wrong word. Don't say unscathed. Don't say unchanged. Everyone, Aragorn is asserting, everyone who goes into Lothlorien comes out a different person. Why? Lothlorien, like Rivendell, is a land of the elves. It's different than Rivendell, however. Okay? We'll see when we get to it. So he says, don't worry about Lothlorien, Boromir. Lore, he calls it lore. Lore wanes in Gondor. The word lore is related to our word learn or learning. The Old English did not use the word teach very often. They would say, I'm going to learn you something, so that you even hear every now and then, sometimes in the South, I'm going to learn you something, teach you something. Aragorn is saying, the teaching, the learning in Gondor has forgotten some things. Lothlorien isn't a bad place. Okay? So, okay, Boromir says, go ahead. But it's perilous. Perilous can mean what? Or does mean what?
Dangerous.
Dangerous. It might lead to danger. Aragorn, you're right, it is. Fair and perilous. Fair means beautiful. Why? Because beautiful things can be perilous. They can lead one astray. But it's not necessarily that. Only evil need fear it, or those who bring some evil with them. Don't try bringing any evil into Lothlorien, because it's kind of like there will be an evil-o-meter that will alert. I'm being a bit facetious, obviously. Okay? So, they make their way, and they meet up with Haldir, who says, I'm going to take you. And we're told, bottom of 347, okay, that Gimli's got to get blindfolded because he's a dwarf. And dwarves and elves are kind of like what in our world? Dogs and cats? Let's use a more sentient race, like humans.
North Koreans and South Koreans.
North Koreans and South Koreans, but they're the same people, really. Dwarves and elves aren't. How about kind of more like...
United States and Russia.
Yeah. White supremacists and African Americans. That'd be a good example. Jews and Palestinians. Or Jews and Arabs. Not all Arabs. A lot of Arabs are Christian. And they get along fine with the Jews. Okay? But that kind of a difference. So, Gimli's like, I'm not going. You're not blindfolding me. So they propose instead everybody will be blindfolded, including
Legolas.
Who is what kind of elf?
Wood elf?
He is a wood elf, and he is going to the greatest trees in all of Middle-earth. I mean, I'm from California. These are like the California redwoods. If you've never seen a California redwood up close and personal, you've quote-unquote never seen a real tree. I mean, a tree that is as wide in diameter as this room, the General Sherman tree. It's 30 feet. One tree. Okay? And you can't see the top of it when you're down at the bottom. And Lake says, what? What? You want me to close my eyes? Hell no. But they do. And they get taken into Lothlorien, and after they're blindfolded for a while, let's see here. Chapter 7. They're taken up to Galadriel and Celeborn's treehouse. It's called a flet. Flet is merely the Old English word for floor, okay? But it's a treehouse, essentially. And they get taken up there, page 355, and Celeborn says, hold on, there's only 8 of you. We heard 9 of you set out. So what gives? And Galadriel says, no, Gandalf the Grey set out with the company, but he didn't pass the borders of this land. Tell us where he is. I wanted to talk to him. And, okay. And Aragorn says Gandalf fell into shadow. Celeborn, these are evil tidings. Why has this not been told me? Haldir's like, don't look at me, man. Nobody. Okay. So they tell Celeborn and Galadriel what happened to Gandalf, a Balrog. And Celeborn says, we've long feared, top of 356, that under Carruthers the terror slept, etc., etc. And then he says, if it were possible, one would say that at the last Gandalf fell from wisdom into folly. Galadriel. Galadriel then says what to her husband? Oh, you'd be a damn fool, whoever said that. That's what he would be rash indeed that said that thing really means. Take it back, Celeborn. Needless were none of the deeds of Gandalf in life. Those that followed him knew not his mind, cannot report his full purpose. However it may be with the guide, the followers are blameless. Don't repent of your welcome of Gimli. And so she kind of addresses Gimli in talking to Celeborn. If our folk had been long exiled and far from Lothlorien, who of the Galadrim, even Celeborn the Wise, would pass nigh and would not wish to look? And then she does address Gimli. And what does she say? Dark is the water of Kelad colder the springs of Kibble Nala, etc., etc. And the dwarf, hearing the names given in his own ancient tongue, looked up and met her eyes. And it seemed to him that he looked suddenly into the heart of an enemy and saw there love and understanding. Wonder came into his face, and he smiled in answer. She speaks to Gimli using his own language. Why is that important?
Can't think of the word. Kind of bonds the two.
It makes a connection. It shows respect. Okay? Which is why when an American today, were to go to China and say, how do I get to Peking? That's a pretty good way of getting you on the fast ticket back out of China. Why? They don't call it Peking. It's Beijing. Okay? Calling something its proper name according to the people who live there is a sign of respect. And so we're told Gimli looks into what he thought was the heart of an enemy, and what does he see instead? Love and understanding. And what happens to him? Notice, he looks into what he considers to be an enemy. That's telling us more about Gimli than it does about Galadriel. And what happens when he looks and sees love and understanding? She is acting like a mirror. That comes back to Gimli. And he rises and he bows. Why does he bow?
Sign of respect.
Sign of respect, sign of honor. It's also a sign of worship. Yet more fair is the living land of Lorien, and the Lady Galadriel is above all the jewels that lie beneath the earth. More fair is Lothlorien than my native homeland. He's kind of like saying, well, I don't live there anymore. And even if I could live there, I'd rather live here. Why? Because you are more beautiful than anything in the whole world. Keep in mind, dwarves are what? What kind of quote-unquote job do they do in the Middle Earth economy? Mining. They make stuff. They're smiths. And so being smiths, they need material from the world to make that out of. He says, I can't make anything as beautiful as you. And the dwarves, according to Tolkien's cosmology and everything, the dwarves make some just drop dead gorgeous stuff. Jewels, gems, etc., etc. There's a silence, and after a while, Celeborn speaks. Galadriel says, we know why you're here, but we're not going to speak of it openly, etc., etc. She says, I was the one who summoned the White Council. They're going to skip a bunch. And notice what happens during that little interview. She looks at each of them. And she doesn't just look at their faces. What are we told? We're told at the bottom of 357, Sam says, I felt as if I hadn't got nothing on, and I didn't like it. She seemed to be looking inside me, asking me what I would do if she gave me the chance of flying back home to the Shire, to a nice little hole with a bit of garden of my own. Turns out he wants more than just a bit of garden of his own when we get to the end. Mary, that's kind of what I felt. Gimli, I'm going to keep my choice to myself. Boromir, well, maybe it was only a test, or maybe she thought to read our own thoughts for her own good purpose. But I kind of think she was tempting us, offering what she pretended to have the power to give. Aragorn, speak no evil of the Lady Galadriel. In other words, Boromir, you don't get it. You can't conceive of the goodness of Galadriel. Okay? You know not what you say. There is in her and in this land no evil, unless a man bring it hither himself. Well, what was one of the first things we learned about Boromir back in Rivendell?
He wants the ring.
Frodo raises the ring, and he looks at it, and his eyes glint. And then shortly thereafter he says, let's take it and march to victory. Okay? So, what evil does Boromir bring into Lothlorien?
Avarice.
Literal avarice, that is, the desire for wealth's sake. What's he want the ring for? Because it's pretty? Because it's worth a lot?
He wants power.
He wants power. What did Saruman want? He wanted power, which is why he's no longer Saruman the White. Okay? Does Gandalf want power? He's offered the ring. He says, no, don't give it to me. With that power, I shall have power too great, he told Frodo. Okay? So, they stay there for about a month, and we get the chapter of the Mirror of Galadriel. She takes Frodo and Sam to what is essentially like a bird bath. Pour some water in it. And she says, I can command the mirror to reveal many things. I can show some what they desire to see, but the mirror will also show some stuff I don't control. What you will see if you leave the mirror to work, I don't know. Now, I think I don't know that Tolkien intends this. I seriously don't. But I think the mirror is kind of like a book. Why? Well, authors can attempt to direct their meaning from a book. That is, they can have an idea that they intend to come across, and that idea might come across, but what else happens? Tolkien talks about this in the foreword. Things in their own background come forward that they don't really have any control over. That is, when I read Lord of the Rings, I don't read it from the same set of lenses Tolkien used to write it. Why? I wasn't born and raised in England in the Edwardian period. I didn't fight in World War I. I've never fought in war. All those things are part of his lenses. Okay? But I have other experiences that Tolkien didn't have. And those other experiences allow me to go, maybe. Okay? So, she asks Frodo, do you want to look? Frodo doesn't answer. She turns to Sam. Well, Sam, this is elf magic. You were talking about wanting to see elf magic. You want to see? He said, sure, I'll take a peek. What'd Sam see? A variety of images, right? Frodo lying in a cave or tunnel, bound up. What else does he see? The Shire. The very road he lives on. Bagshot Row. with the gaffer turned out of his house and walking down the street with all of his belongings pushed in a wheelbarrow. He's been evicted. The party tree, the tree under which Frodo and Bilbo threw their big birthday party, chopped down. What does Sam think? I gotta get home. Why? He thinks that's happening now. And
He wants to stop
I gotta stop it. Sorry? I can't stay here, top of 363. I must go home. They've dug up Bagshop Row, and there's the poor old gaffer going down the hill. Gaffer's his father. The lady, you cannot go home alone. You did not wish to go home without your master before you looked in the mirror, and yet you knew that evil things might well be happening in the Shire. You knew they might be. Were there evil things happening in the Shire when Sam left? What happened the very night they left? He had gone to give the key to number 4, Bagshot Row, Frodo's house, to his father to leave for the Sackville Bagginses, the new owners. And what did he see? He saw a black rider. Evil is in the Shire. They have an idea, Frodo a better idea than Sam does, of who the Black Riders are. They don't have a full idea. That doesn't come about until they meet Aragorn. Okay? She says, some of the things you've seen might never come to pass. Sam sits down. I wish I'd never come here. Where's the here? Is it specifically Lothlorien?
His position where he is in time.
Or is
at
it
that
specifically the whole journey? I wish I had stayed home. Why? Because I'd give that 10 man what for if he tries to kick my father out of his house. Or whoever else. What's Sam really mean by that? If I'd only have been there,
He could have done something.
XYZ wouldn't have happened. What's the problem with that kind of saying, though? You don't know that. Okay? And I don't want to see no more magic. No. I'll go home by the long road with Mr. Frodo or not at all. What's he mean by the long road?
He's going to stick with Frodo to the end.
Which is the end? What is the end?
Destruction of the ring.
And then get back. Sam is telling us here what his long-term goal is. Back in the Shire. Have we heard Frodo talk much about going home? No. But I hope to get back someday, if somebody's going to get it. So Frodo looks. But before he does, she says, Frodo, do you want to look? And he says, do you advise me to look? Notice what Frodo's seeking for. What is, I think I've talked about this before. What does that word advise mean? To see. You seek advice from somebody who supposedly can see farther than you can. Or can see clearer than you can. Why? Your vision might be a little bit obscured. By what? Desires, wants, needs. Things that kind of cloud the mind. But somebody else who doesn't have the same desires, wants, needs might be able to see your path a little more clearly. Frodo asked her, do you advise me to look? And what does she say?
No.
No. I do not counsel you one way or the other. Like a,
Doesn't matter to her.
it's not that it doesn't matter. She's like a psychologist. You go see a shrink, and you tell the shrink something, and you might be hoping, or counselor, and you might be hoping that the shrink or counselor or guru or whatever will give you this, spelled with a C, advice, not advise. And what does that individual say? Well, but what do you want to do? How does that make you feel when I won't give you what you want? You may learn something, I don't know, might be fair, might be evil, might be profitable, and it might not. Well, that's a hell of a lot of good. So you might see something, but you might not. It might be helpful, or it might not. It might be good or fair, or it might not. But I think you have the courage and wisdom for the venture, or I wouldn't have brought you here. Ah, now there's a little tiny clue there. It takes courage and wisdom to look in this thing. Why? We don't think about it, but it takes courage and wisdom to get up every morning. The reason I said we don't think about it is why? You got up yesterday morning, right? Quote unquote, nothing bad happened. I mean, some of you might have had, I've gotten a couple of emails from people, some of you might have had some things bad happen, but everybody that's here is still here. You're all breathing. You're all walking on your own 2 feet, etc. That is, you haven't died. Okay? And guess what? When you woke up yesterday morning, the same thing had happened the previous morning. So on the basis of however years old you are, what are you assuming when you wake up tomorrow morning? Same thing is going to happen. And yet, what could happen?
The worst.
You might come to school one day, and that might be the day that MTSU makes national history. And it's not because of basketball or football or any other athletics. It's because some student goes all postal. Like has happened at a variety of universities around the country over the last several years. Some student comes in loaded to kill bear and kills a bunch of students. Why? Because he had a fight with his girlfriend or something like that. Or the world wasn't fair. So I'm going to take out all these people who had nothing to do with being fair to me. That theoretically could happen. How do we know? Because it has. And yet, we get up. Why? Because wisdom says, what are the odds? They're not great. You know, Travis is a pilot, training to be a pilot. What are the odds you're going to die in a plane crash? Not nearly as bad as you are getting hit by a car. I don't even think the odds of being killed in a plane wreck are as bad as being struck by lightning. Could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure odds are much, much greater you'll get struck by lightning than you will die in a plane crash. Okay? Frodo, okay, yeah, I'll look. Who knows? And what does he see? He sees mountains. He sees an old man walking down a road, not in gray, but in white. First he thinks it's Gandalf, but he's in white, so maybe Saruman. Huh. Vision changes. He sees Bilbo. Changes again. He sees the sea. Changes again. He sees a tall ship with sails coming up out of the west. He sees a white fortress, 7 towers. Doesn't know what it is. Or maybe he does. That vanishes. And then he sees an eye. A red, lidless eye. And the eye is doing this. Bing, 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 bing. What's it doing?
Searching.
It's searching. It's triangulating. And it's getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And as it gets closer and closer and closer and closer to Frodo, what happens? Where does he have the ring?
Around his neck.
On a chain around his neck. And he gets closer and closer and closer and closer. Why? Does the ring see the eye? Does the eye see the ring? And she says, don't touch the water. Just stop there. I see it too, Frodo. I see it constantly. The eye is constantly searching, and she is aware of the eye constantly searching. Why? What does Galadriel have? One of the elven rings of power. She can perceive Sauron's mind, but he cannot perceive hers. What happens if he gets the ring? Yeah. The power of the elven rings, totally overcome. Okay? So, Frodo says to her, bottom of 365, you are wise and fearless and fair. Lady Galadriel. Notice all three of those good positive attributes, good virtues. Wise, fearless, fair. He doesn't say you're dumb, you're gutless, and you're ugly. I will give you the one ring if you ask for it. It is too great a matter for me. It's kind of like him going, please, come on, take it. Just say, I want it. And she laughs, and what do we see? It's like she suddenly grows 10 stories tall. It says instead of the Dark Lord, you'll set up a queen, and blah, 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 blah. And then she dwindles back down. I passed the test. What's the test? The temptation of the ring. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. I will not become the Dark Lady. I'm just going to stay little old plain Galadriel. And now he realizes. And she says, when Frodo asks, I'm permitted to wear the one ring. Why cannot I see all the others and know the thoughts of those that wear them? You haven't tried. So what idea has just been put in Frodo's mind? Next time I put on the ring, let me dial into, Elvish ring number 1. The Elvish rings, by the way, are air, fire, and water. Okay? You have not tried, she says. Only thrice have you set the ring upon your finger since you knew what you possessed. Knew what you possessed means since Gandalf came and told you in the chapter The Shadow of the Past. You've put the ring on 3 times. What's that telling us? Every time Frodo puts on the ring, Galadriel knows. And one can assume whoever wears the other 2 Elvish rings knows. So she tells him, don't try. Why? It would destroy you. Why? Because you're a midget, Frodo. You don't have the strength. The implication is, I, Galadriel, do have the strength. You would need to become far stronger and to train your will to the domination of others. In the fairy story essay, Tolkien defines magic simply as the domination of wills and things. That's what magic does. It seeks control. It might be control like Harry Potter, Wingardium Leviosa, and I make this bottle levitate somehow. What am I doing? I'm imposing my will on that thing. Okay? Avada Kedavra. What am I doing? I'm imposing my will on the living will of another person and removing their life. Okay? That's magic. That's simple power. There's a character who, quote unquote, has a lot of power in the Lord of the Rings who never uses, quote unquote, magic per se. Gandalf. Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Did Gandalf try to control the Balrog? No, he didn't. Did he try to destroy it? No, he didn't. What did he do? He tried to stop it from harming, damaging his friends. Break the bridge, make it fall. Okay? So, they leave Lothlorien, and before they leave, they're given a bunch of gifts. What gifts do they receive? For example, this was pretty easy. What kind of gift would you give Boromir? What does Boromir receive? Other than the cloak, which they all receive, and Limbus, which they all receive, Boromir's given something specific. A big, giant, EFB, whatever, gold belt buckle. big, shiny, it says, I'm a stud. Look at me. Okay? Real useful, right? That's what Boromir get. What does Aragorn get? He gets a sheath or a scabbard for his sword. Okay, that's useful. Did he not have one before? Did he just have it, stuck down his underwear or stuck in his belt loop? No. This is to replace his other scabbard. What's so good about this one? The sword that is pulled from this scabbard will never break. Why is that important?
Because Isildur's blade broke.
It broke once before, famously. This one won't break. So that's pretty cool. So, scabbard. Where's Legolas get? Bow and arrows. Okay? So, bow. What does Frodo get? He gets the phial, the little glass jar with a stopper on it that has water from the Mirror of Galadriel. Where did the Mirror of Galadriel get its light from? It's a mirror. It reflects, okay? What light does it reflect? It reflects the star Arendelle. Okay? We don't know much about Arendelle in here other than what little we're told in a couple of stories and songs. But Arendelle was a mariner. He was the one who went off to the west to seek the help of the gods in the last great alliance of elves and men. Okay? And he came back bearing, or he had with him, a Silmaril. The very thing that Aragorn, in first telling Frodo, Merry, Sam, and Pippin, a big long story, was talking about. When he talked about Beren and Luthien going into Morgoth's stronghold to get a Silmaril. Okay? We'll talk about the Silmaril a little bit later. So, Frodo gets the phial. Okay? Cloak, limbus, etc. What does Sam get?
Rope.
Rope? And one other thing. What's Sam's job? Yep, rope and dirt. What kind of dirt? Magical dirt, The kind of dirt, you just need one grain of dirt. Plant it next to a tree and it's like miracle grow. I mean, you'll grow the greatest trees in the world. Okay? Merry and Pippin? Yeah. Knives are clasped something. Who have we left off?
Gimli.
Boromir, what did Gimli get? What would you think Gimli would get? A big old massive axe, man. I mean, an axe for killing orcs. Okay? He doesn't get anything when they're giving out all the treasure, giving out all the presents. And he's kind of like, she's like, well, I didn't know. I didn't know what was on your list. What did you want for Christmas? So what would you want? And he goes, well, I don't think I should really. No, come on, say it. He goes, well, I mean, if it was okay. What? I would take 3 strands of your hair. And the elves are like, he's dead. We're just going to kill him. How? She's like, Gimli, why would you want 3 strands of my hair? And he kind of blushes because I would encase them in eternal crystal and they would be the most valued thing in all the dwarf kingdom. And she's like, oh, Gimli, make me blush. And she pulls 3 hairs out and gives it to him. How useful is that?
Not very.
I mean, what's he gonna do? Make a rope at it and tie up Sauron with? No. What's the purpose of that? What does that show? Again, think of the elves and dwarves prior to what's been happening.
It shows good relations between elves and dwarves.
It shows healing. It shows union between elves and dwarves. Okay? So they go on their way. They go down the great river. They know they're being followed by Gollum, or swallowed, whichever the two. And we come to the chapter with 8 minutes left, the breaking of the fellowship. And what happens? They reach a point, Parth Galen on the right, Falls of Rauros. There's two big, massive statues of Elendil and Isildur. Okay? And they know we got to make a choice at this point. Where are we going? Well, what's Frodo's goal? Mordor. Can Frodo take the short road to Mordor, or can he take the long road to Mordor? Because the long road would be, let's say, you're starting off Jacksonville, Florida, and you want to end up San Francisco. Easiest way, get on I-10, go almost all the way across, cut up Dallas, get to Interstate 40, boom. Or from Dallas, cut up to like Fort Rock, Little Rock, Arkansas, get on Interstate 40, boom, straight across. I mean, you can go 10 almost all the way across, and then go up. That would be the straight road. What would be the long road?
Go to Michigan.
Go up 95, then come over, upper Midwest, get on Interstate 80, go by Devil's Mountain, Montana, go to Yellowstone, maybe come down to Yosemite in California, hit LA, get back on 101, go up make it a scenic. He could go to Minas Tirith first. Okay? So Frodo says, give me some time. I need an hour. What happens?
They're attacked.
What happens just before they're attacked? Boromir goes a bit nuts. Why? Boromir realizes Frodo, has gone off, and so the others are all sitting there talking. Boromir goes and follows him, and he says, give me the ring, Frodo. And Frodo realizes what's happening. He puts the ring on. Where does he go? Notice they start off, here's the river, here's the shore, there's an island in the middle, and they reach the land, and the land gradually goes up, and up here, there's essentially a mountain. It's very similar, kind of, to Weathertop. Only this mountain has essentially, a big, giant seat sitting on it. Okay? Boromir and Frodo, somewhere around here, meet up. Frodo puts the ring, runs. He runs up. Boromir runs down. Frodo runs up there. He doesn't know where he is. He sits in this seat. The seat is called the Seat of Seeing. But he has the ring on also. And what does he see? He looks north, west, south, east. And up north, he has the ring on. He can see Mirkwood, hundreds of miles away. And he sees orcs pouring out of the Mirkwood forest and the Misty Mountains. He sees the land of Beorn from The Hobbit, burning. Okay? In other words, all hell's breaking loose. What else does he see? He looks to Rohan, he looks to Orthanc. Gradually, his eyes turn east. He sees Mount Doom, and then he sees Sauron's tower. And up there in the tower, he sees the lidless eye. And it's like, lock on. Because his eye is sending out like a beam. And there's a beam there, and there's a beam there. He sees the beam hit the mountaintop on the other side of the river, and it's getting closer and closer. And then we see this, page 401. He heard himself crying out, never, never. Or was it, verily I come. I come to you. He could not tell. Then as a flash from some other point of power, there came to his mind another thought. Take it off. Take it off. Fool, take it off. Take off the ring. Never, never, verily I come. Pretty distinctly different, right? Who's saying never, never?
Him.
Frodo. Who's saying, "Verily I come"?
The ring.
Ring. Who says, "Fool, take it off"?
Elven ring bearer.
Who, so far,
Could
I
be,
think there's only one,
could be Gandalf.
who's the only person in the novel who calls anybody else a fool.
Gandalf.
It's Gandalf. He calls Pippin a fool 2 or 3 times. So, where's Gandalf? Dead. This book ends with Boromir coming, telling Aragorn, ring, and we hear the horns blowing. Okay. Boromir goes after Merry and Pippin. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli go after Sam, Frodo, and the novel ends with Frodo and Sam set off on the last stage of the quest together. They punch holes in the river in the boats. They go off on their own in a boat, leaving behind Aragorn, Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, Merry, and Pippin, all alive. Okay? And then we have to wait, if we're reading this in 1954, November of 1954, and then we have to wait, I think it is about 8 months for the next volume. Okay? And we open that up with 2 minutes left. The Departure of Boromir. What does the Departure of Boromir, the title, literally mean? What is a departure?
He leaves.
It doesn't mean death. It means the leaving of Boromir. We're not told that Boromir is dead in the title. We get that in the body of the chapter. J.K. Rowling does almost the exact same thing in the 7th book with the death of a warrior. Okay? All right, we'll stop there, so we're pretty far behind. We'll pick up with the Departure of Boromir. Read a lot. Just read a lot. Get up at least through, I don't know, Voice of Saruman for next time. If we end up not having class on Wednesday, more than likely what I will do